Kane's room a little while ago. There's a bunch of weather on top of him. I'm not sure what's going on with that. So today it's Wendell and I, and we're gonna have a bit of fun here.
The news from the Internet of Things. We're gonna have to make this a regular segment. It's like things that went wrong on the Internet of Things, or the Internet of Things that are horribly insecure and poorly designed. I don't know. So
I'll say this before we get into this. When we went to the Computex meeting at CES, it was like a little luncheon or whatever, and almost the only thing that they talked about was IoT technologies. They said it that way, and I was like, what are they saying? Oh, IoT, like Internet of Things. Yes. So their big focus this year, when we go to Computex in the end of May, beginning of June, is Internet of Things, connected devices. And they're going to have a huge area that's just going to be all the devices that are making up the Internet of Things, wearables, all that kind of stuff. And they're having another section that's going to be software and programming so that they can get together and use business terms like synergy and that sort of thing. So they'll all get together and do that. And the proliferation of the Internet of Things will be upon us, and it's going to be very interesting.
So what you're telling me, I mean, I hear the words coming out of your mouth, but what I'm actually hearing, like what my brain is processing, is that it really will not be my own paranoia when I think that my Keurig coffee pot and my LG smart refrigerator are conspiring against me. They, in fact, will be conspiring against me.
You'll be in the other room peeking around the corner. You're like, oh God, what are they talking about? What do they know? What is Keurig telling the people in Switzerland?
They're plotting against me. So the thing that happened this week that really did happen is the Nest thermostat. If you haven't seen this is the internet connected, sort of Google brainchild Wi-Fi thermostat. And they pushed out a firmware update from the cloud, because having your thermostat connected to the cloud is kind of a cool thing to do, I guess, because you can control it from your phone. I mean, that's kind of neat. Something went wrong, and the thermostats went offline and stayed offline, and so people in colder climates had no heat because the thermostat just wouldn't turn the heat on.
Isn't there like a manual override or something like that? Does it have to go through all the nonsense? I guess if you brick the entire device and that's the only way that you control your heater, but for something like this,
the Internet of Things that are poorly designed. Fortunately, I see you guys out there in the audience that have experience with things like programmable logic controllers. There's a whole branch of computer science that has been invented to deal with these kinds of things. And it's really sad and disappointing that no one even cares to implement this kind of thing. I mean, the Internet of Things, the first piece of functionality, the first layer should be the thing should do what it is designed to do. And then the second layer that operates above that is the thing that does the communication. And so those of you guys that have worked on programmable logic controllers or worked through ladder logic, or, God forbid, worked on finite state machines, you have these hardware or software constructs that basically make sure that the physical hardware is always in a defined state. You're never in an undefined state. Your hardware doesn't really have a blue screen of death. Otherwise, if your pacemaker has a blue screen of death, you will have a blue screen of death. And this would be very bad. And so the Nests basically had a blue screen of death, which meant that, your house could freeze and your pipes could burst and all this kind of thing. Had it been implemented correctly, had the hardware and like some designer that knew what they were doing put this together correctly, they would have implemented the thermostat part of it at a lower level. So whatever you commands you've set on the thermostat, those are there and those always operate. And then at a higher level, you would have your cloud functions, things like I'm going to talk to the mobile phone application. I'm going to set the temperature. I'm going to do all this other cool stuff. And so if they push out a firmware update, it really only affects that part that's cloud facing. The other part that lets you actually use a normal thermostat function, like setting the temperature and making sure that it actually works, that really wouldn't be touched. I mean, why would you ever need to touch that? That also provides a nice layer of separation for security purposes. People that work on programmable logic controllers sort of have this. The programmable logic controller is a separate computer, and then there's usually a desktop computer that gets data and information and sends control signals to the programmable logic controller. And so you have two separate systems, and if Windows crashes, the programmable logic controller keeps everything going. This is the kind of thing that's in an elevator. It's in industrial control systems. It's like, do you really want your elevator to have a blue screen of death? And this is if you've been in a fancy office building that's got, the LCD screen in the elevator that does all sorts of really cool stuff. This is how those are implemented, because if it wasn't implemented this way, it could kill people. So you have the controller.
I think maybe we should put together a consortium and come up with a paradigm for general best practices, because I don't see anyone else out there doing it. As far as the Internet of Things, it's going to be crazy. There's going to be a lot of people doing it. There's going to be a lot of developers of all ages, but I think mostly the young, less experienced ones who are just very excited about creating something that's on the Internet of Things, maybe something to unlock and lock your door from your phone and that sort of thing. Then it'll malfunction and you'll be locked outside, and then you'll be in Canada and it'll drop to -30 and you'll freeze to death, and then someone will be like, "Why did he freeze to death?" And be like, "Oh, well, he and everyone in his neighborhood had this lock device and they all malfunctioned because of a firmware update and they all got locked outside and he didn't make it. We're sorry, no one wanted to cuddle him." Not even the dog. And that brings it here. But
any one thing is not Skynet, but all things taken together are Skynet.
I mean, should we put together a consortium and just say here's the best practices? These sorts of activities or these sorts of functions should be low level so that anyone can override it or control it without having to worry about firmware malfunctions, worry about stuff from the cloud and all that nonsense, worry about internet connectivity losses and whatnot. I wonder.
Yeah, fortunately, computer scientists have already provided us models of these things. It's just that we need to implement them. I mean, just because you can plug a Raspberry Pi into something doesn't mean that, it should absolutely take over the universe and control everything. I mean, the dystopian future is already here. It's like, if I was trying to load a firmware update on my LG smart refrigerator, it's bricked and now it won't cool the food. It's like, how did this even happen? How did we get here? There were refrigerators in the 60s that used mercury as a switch, basically, to control the temperature of the internals. Old school thermostats used mercury and a coil of wire to determine, how it set the temperature. There's no reason, we should still have machines as simple and elegant as that, although hopefully not containing something as toxic as mercury. But then we put the Internet of Things sort of on top of that, and we don't replace it. Replacing it is sort of bad news. Replacing it's also putting control in the hands of other people, which is bad. It's like, we rolled out a firmware update that makes your thermostat less functional. This is the kind of thing that Richard M. Stallman is worried about, and why he gets so bent out of shape about everything. Because if this company decides to push out a firmware update or decides you can't do something, there's pretty much nothing you can do about it.
Speaking of things that are going to take control away from us, let's talk about what's going to happen in 2016 from the perspective of some guy who wrote an article on TechCrunch.com. But he does have some interesting tidbits of stuff just to chew on and think about as we move forward in 2016. So, robotics. Yeah, it's coming. The actual robots that can do standard household chores are not quite here yet, but we're getting closer. And we saw the DARPA experiments where all the kids got together and they were trying to win some money to create robots. And a lot of the robots were falling on their face and malfunctioning. Well, that's not indicative of everything that's going on. We will have robots soon that are able to do, well, actually they already do have one that can thread a needle and sew. They're building robots that will be able to supplant standard workers on assembly lines. They're going to be building robots probably in the near future that will be able to do very difficult tasks like cleaning, folding, vacuuming. And I say very difficult tasks because to us it seems natural, because that's the way we are. We know that if we were folding something and it doesn't fold correctly, it's like our brains are like, let's fix this. But whereas a robot, where it's made to do a very specific thing that it's been programmed to do, very specific motions, it's not as easy. So they have to do a little bit with AI and some other things. But it's coming in the near future. Maybe in the next 3 or 4 years we'll have robots that can actually fold things. Do you know that, Wendell, that it takes more computational power, or it requires, I guess, a bigger algorithm to have a robot fold a pair of pants than it does to have a rover land on the moon?
Yes, I would believe that.
That's ridiculous.
The amount of software that went into landing on the moon was a vanishingly small amount of software.
Yeah,
although printed out on paper, it's about as tall as a person.
Yeah, and it probably takes more than that to run Facebook. Well, of course it does, but I mean, to log into Facebook. Anyway, artificial intelligence is coming. A big problem with artificial intelligence of the past is they've just been enormously complex programming, chunks of programming, a bunch of if-thens, standard stuff. They're working on deep learning. We've got Watson. We've got a few other things. So look for that in the future, more deep learning type stuff that becomes a bit more uncanny. They won't be supplanting our intelligence for the next 10, 12 years, at least. We won't have anything superhuman. But, this year there'll be some advances. That's kind of interesting. As far as robotics, they do mention a couple companies here, like Switzerland's ABB, Denmark's Universal Robots, Boston Rethink Robotics. Those are the ones who are working on just robots who can assemble circuits, pack boxes, do standard stuff, maybe even be your barista at the coffee shop. See, it's like that's the thing that's so difficult for robots. The nuance and the little things of being your barista, walking in and being like, I want a skim non-fat soy mochaccino with extra pumpkin spice, but I only want 2/3 as much pumpkin spice and all that kind of crap. That's the robot's like, well, what are you talking about, dude? Like, what is all this nonsense? So it's when robots get that good, yeah, it'll be a different world.
Robotics for manufacturing, historically, has been really high speed, really high precision, very custom-made tooling, and Epson and a few other companies have, over the last 5 years or so, developed a different type of industrial automation that I've been fortunate enough to sort of see up close and personal. And basically, they have these robots and stuff that are designed with very, very loose tolerances, but it uses computer vision system and sensors and things like the Kinect sort of 3D mapping sensor, where it does like an infrared 3D map kind of thing of its surrounding, and then it deals with the inaccuracies of their environment and inaccuracy of the motors and inaccuracy of the tooling in the robotics by compensating for it in software. And so one of the most fascinating uses of it was a pick and place machine, which is a type of machine used for electronic circuit board assembly. And so rather than try to build this thing that would take into account the inertia of the little component that it was picking up and, deposit a particular component on a particular circuit board in a pool of solder paste or anything like that, it would use a vision system to check and make sure that everything was aligned, and sort of it's an X-ray vision system and a whole bunch of things. And the tooling for it was comparatively very inexpensive because it did not need, one 1,000th or 5/10,000ths of an inch accuracy. They were able to basically machine all the tooling to much looser tolerances and then just deal with it in software. And we as human beings, that's a lot of what we do. It's like, once you learn a skill, once you teach a person to do something, it doesn't matter that their arms and legs and fingers are all different lengths. They'll just sort of adjust to it and go with the flow. And if one of these machines is making 10,000 widgets a day, it's going to wear, it's going to get a little bit looser, it's not going to be quite as accurate as it used to be. It's going to have sensors for detecting how far it's moved and that kind of thing. This is the real revolution in robotics, and it's already happening in manufacturing, and it's going to drive the cost of manufacturing down very low. And once we figure out, we're sort of going in a different direction with this, and so we're having to sort of reinvent things that we've been using since the 70s, because that technology was all about precision and repeatability and very tight tolerances and very tight machining. And so now, because we're going in a different direction, it means that we sort of got to catch up on the last 30 years of engineering, and we're almost there. Because of that, you will see things like robots in fast food service. Your completely automated Starbucks is within the realm of possibility, because those machines can operate with very low tolerances. I mean, the theoretical Starbucks of the future, and with a machine like this, can operate with very low tolerances, very low maintenance, user serviceable parts. Everything is basically standardized tooling and standardized machining. This is the future, and it's not quite there yet to where that Starbucks is seriously going to roll this out, but you better believe these large companies are looking into this kind of technology. It's really interesting.
And then we'll always have to deal with the question of what do we do with the people who no longer have jobs, but we've dealt with that question over and over and over throughout history as new technologies make obsolete manual labor jobs of the past. So we'll cross that bridge, and we could maybe even do, I think it might be interesting to do a special segment on that at some point after we move and have a little bit more time, because that's the human element's always something that interests me, especially with nerd geek technology culture. The human element is sort of where I always come in, and a lot of you guys know that if you watch the show. Like, one of us brings the technical side and one of us brings the human element, and one of us molds them together in the middle, so we kind of hit on all different sides, but it might be interesting to explore that a little bit in the future. So as much as we bash on Comcast, we're going to do a little bit more of that, but we're also going to come to their defense at the same time. Can you punch someone in the face and then tell everyone else to chill out at the same time? I think I want to try that. Like, I got this, guys. Everyone else leave him alone.
Sounds pretty hipster to me.
Punch this guy in the face. I don't know. I am moving to Portland after all. Anyway, so Comcast has got this new thing where you get a pop-up if your modem is not either a Comcast new modem. Well, it's not even that. As long as if your modem is not DOCSIS 3, which is the new standard, which allows you to have the fast speeds, you get a pop-up in your browser that keeps coming back that's like, hey, you're using the crap modem. You need to get a better modem. And of course they want you to buy their modem because they make $1 gazillion off of idiots who buy their crappy modems and then forget to turn them in at the end of the year or whenever you switch services, and they're charged $1 gazillion. And it's a racket, that's for sure. But you can buy any DOCSIS 3 modem that's compatible with Microsoft, even some that aren't, like I use. And
compatible with Microsoft, what?
I mean, Comcast, Microsoft.
Comcast, yes.
I got my evil confused. All right. So you can buy any DOCSIS 3.
Evil empire.
You can buy any DOCSIS 3 as long as it's compatible with Comcast, and mine's not, but it works anyway. But and then they won't bother you as long as it's DOCSIS 3.
We mentioned this article because this article has been everywhere. Like Comcast has the unstoppable pop-ups if you buy your own modem. Okay, so what's actually going on here is DOCSIS 3 is a modern standard, and DOCSIS 2 and 1 are sort of the older standard, and they don't really operate the same way. And if you've got a lot of older DOCSIS equipment in your neighborhood that you share your node with, it can cause problems for DOCSIS 3 modems, the other DOCSIS 3 customers that are there. And so what happened is this guy got an older modem that was not DOCSIS 3, and he basically had unstoppable pop-ups. It's a lot like the Apple iCloud pop-up. If you've ever got like an iPhone or an iDevice and it's got iCloud on it, and you change your password, you get the pop-up on the device, and you hit cancel, it will keep popping up over and over and over and over, and it has been like that since like iOS 6, and it just won't go away. It's just like that with this Comcast pop-up, and so this guy's freaking out because he can't get rid of the pop-ups. And Comcast, that they have the technology to do this, that should be disturbing on its own level. But we just thought we'd mention it because you're going to see this article everywhere. But this isn't actually the whole story. The whole story here is that Comcast wants you to use DOCSIS 3 so that your old DOCSIS signals will not cause problems. And it's perfectly fine for you to use a third-party modem as long as it's a DOCSIS 3 third-party modem. If you're using a third-party modem and it's not DOCSIS 3, you're going to have a bunch of unstoppable pop-ups.
And the problem with me, and just like you just said, the reason we need to punch Comcast in the face is they're injecting code for these pop-ups. So even though the information is correct, this is as if a messenger. It's not like, okay, the right thing to do is a messenger comes to your door and knocks on the door and he's like, hey, I have a message for you from Comcast. Here's what Comcast is doing. You're lying in bed, you're on your phone, looking at the internet, whatever you do in bed, and then all of a sudden a guy walks into your room, climbs into bed, and holds a message in front of you that says, hey dude, your modem sucks. What do you want to do about it? That's what this is. And that's why it's not cool.
I prefer to imagine it as a 35-year-old unshaven man in diapers with a giant Sharpie and scribbles all over my incoming mail. So I open my door and I go to the mailbox and I grab my mail, and it's like, someone has taken a Sharpie to my mail. They have defaced my mail. I can't see this anymore. And it's like, oh, by the way, you need to do something. It's like, what has gone wrong here? Why is this okay?
Pretty much how.
And why do you have the technology to do this? How can you afford to staff somebody to do this? This is not good.
I don't want to talk about Donald Trump, but he's the next tab over. He's dumb, and so is everyone else who's dumb. They both
he's elected, there'll be hell to pay.
Oh God. He and Hillary Clinton want to close up the internet because it's dangerous and we got to lock it down. So if either one of them gets elected, they're both incredibly ignorant about the way the internet works. They're also incredibly ignorant just about anything technology. So if either of them get elected, they're not hip, they're not groovy, they don't know what's going on, and it's going to be really dangerous if any of them start making laws about the internet, because they're going to do so with they're going to do so from a misinformed standpoint, and it won't even be ignorance at that point, because they're going to be getting information from the guys over at the FBI who are like, yeah, just do this crap, just ruin the internet, could you please just like make only 5 sites legal and then give us backdoor access to all of them, that'd be great. And then Donald Trump will be like, yeah, I hate Mexicans, yeah, perfect, great. He says that in every sentence now.
We made fun of Australia with Malcolm Turnbull, and we made fun of the UK with David Cameron, and our comeuppance has come. The two leading candidates are perhaps the most internet-ophobic people that there could possibly be in the American political landscape. I mean, why don't we get rid of electricity? I mean, people use electricity for bad things too. We don't need electricity. It's cool. We need to button that up too.
Pretty much how it works. So we talked about the White House. They were going to go out and talk to some of the guys in Silicon Valley about, hey, let's figure out this getting terrorist thing. We got to get those terrorists, and they're pretty smart. They use that encryption. Anyway, Apple. Well, we'll get to that. I guess we'll do that article first. Apple has been lashing out about because he says they're being wishy-washy. I think it's the wrong word. I think he's being a little wishy-washy on how they're being because they want backdoors. So nothing's really come to a head yet. We got James Comey, the director of the FBI, who just absolutely hates encryption. He thinks it's like the worst thing ever for law enforcement. And he goes on and on and on saying things about like, hey, we had all these problems. We caught these terrorists. We have no idea what they were saying to each other because encryption. So he's making encryption the enemy here. So there's that. The interesting thing here, and did you have anything to weigh in on that one? I just wanted to quickly mention it to get to the next article mainly.
Well, just really quickly, just to recap, here's the scorecard, and this is all stuff that we've covered. The encryption with a backdoor doesn't make sense for a lot of reasons we've already mentioned, but over the last several weeks and months, we've got these 3 top firewall and security appliance vendors, Cisco, Juniper, and Fortinet. They have all had, DEFCON 1, nuclear emergency, everything is on fire, people panicking in the streets, level security problems with all of their hardware. If you run Cisco networking infrastructure for your VPN and firewall, if you run Juniper or Fortinet, you have major problems unless you've updated, because all of those pieces of equipment had backdoors. Juniper, just very quietly, the elliptic curve encryption that we originally, it's like, I don't even remember if we were on the air when that happened, but I want to say that when some vendors added the elliptic curve encryption as a default, which the NSA paid RSA to do, as far as RSA recommending it, and RSA being the encryption company, as far as we know, as far as we suspect, that it would weaken overall security. And so, here we are in 2016 looking at this, and it's like, oh yeah, the scorecard is just because we suspect there are backdoors in these things, we've been able to find 3 backdoors in a very short amount of time. And so if there exist backdoors, the backdoors will be exploited by criminals. It's just not possible to design. These systems are very fragile and very complicated, and it's just not possible. It's not within the realm of possibility of human engineering to engineer something that is secure except for a very narrow scope of possibility. And it appears that all of these products have already been subverted at the highest levels by law enforcement. And so I really do think that they need to do what Apple is saying here and come out and say strong encryption is good. And people that actually know what they're doing, that have worked for the NSA and have worked in government, are sort of asking the other people in government, like, wait, what are you saying? No, we totally, encryption backdoors, this doesn't make sense. We also covered Silk Road. If you guys think back to the Silk Road case, Silk Road, Tor, everything's super encrypted. How did they get that guy? Good old-fashioned police work. The guy was using a public internet access in a library, and his laptop's encrypted, and if he steps away from his laptop, it locks, and all sorts of really high security stuff. Pretty much everything you can think of. Every no backdoor encryption, any of that. How did they get him? It's like, well, the agents followed him and they watched him, and law enforcement was perfectly able to operate. So it's a complete lie, a complete fabrication that this kind of thing is necessary for law enforcement. That's not true. This kind of thing is necessary for blanket surveillance of your population and nothing more.
Tim Cook, I'm being dumb right now, but he's got this terrible picture here. Why is it that anytime you're well known and there's an article about you, they just pick the worst picture possible and they use it on the internet? So I went and found a better picture since he's being pretty good right now. He's being okay. Apple's doing some bad stuff too, but so let's go ahead and get rid of this picture and go on to what's next.
The source
here?
Code to China. That's as good as giving them a backdoor almost, because there's a bug there somewhere.
Yeah. All right, let's move on and stay on the same subject, but this is hurting my brain right now. You remember Michael Hayden? The former director of the NSA? Well, hell's frozen, pigs are flying, and Michael Hayden has said that a backdoor is a bad idea. In fact, I'll quote him right here. He said, "I actually think end-to-end encryption is good for America. I know encryption represents a particular challenge for the FBI, But on balance, I actually think it creates greater security for the American nation than the alternative, a backdoor. That came out of Hayden's mouth? What? I don't know what to make of that, other than holy crap.
So here's a guy that's seen into the belly of the beast telling you good encryption is good. What does that tell you?
He's also saying that this is not going to be legislation because I'll read another quote from him. He said, "When was the last time you saw the success of legislation designed to prevent technological process? It's not going to happen." Well, I think we could probably, if we sat down here for a minute, we probably could name a few things that have stifled the development of technical progress. And if we want to talk about scientific progress, man, the list would be long.
There's a bill that some New York senators created for New York State that would ban phone encryption that cannot be broken by the manufacturer. The way that I look at politicians meddling with encryption is about like politicians going down to a nuclear reactor and then messing with the fuel and control rods. It's like they don't belong there. They need to not mess with things they don't understand. Otherwise, it's going to end very badly.
You know, if this legislation passes, which I maybe it will because New York has been very weird. Well, iPhones can't be sold unless they want to pay like $2,500 per device. No iPhones can be sold in New York. None. The giant Apple store downtown that primarily lives on selling iPhones and iDevices, done. It's like, do they even know what their legislation would do? Do they think that Apple is going to... I mean, Apple, for the rest of the country, I think that they might sacrifice New York and just be like, fine, we're not operating in New York any longer. I'm sorry. I think
they'll do something far more vindictive. I think they'll do something like, you go and you buy the iPhone and it's completely blank. There's nothing on it. In order to set it up, you have to go back to your house and plug it in with a cable and download the operating system. And it's like, all right, New York State, we're going to sell phones that have no encryption. It's up to the end user to put the encryption on it. Ta-da, done.
And then they go home. I think that'd be a loophole. They go home and install the OS, and it's like they didn't buy it like this. They bought it empty.
Yeah,
it was
technically blank. Yeah. So,
Tim Cook, you owe us. And I also don't forget. I also put that nice smiling picture of you on there. Give us money, Tim Cook.
You owe us.
Speaking of give us money,
it would be to get like $500 from Tim Cook on the Patreon.
$500 a week, Tim Cook. Not a month, a week. That's $9,000 a month.
We could afford 0.25 apples per month.
God damn it, I was drinking coffee. Oh, man. Speaking of giving people money, we'll take some money. Yeah, we'll take lots of money. Go ahead and buy the entire discography of Zweihander. It's on sale on what is it, on Bandcamp? I don't even know what it's on sale on. Anyway, that's going toward the development of the game. Ooh, I'm going to show you guys.
Epic Bandcamp.
Epic Bandcamp, yeah. We've also got Epic Pants. It's got some awesome stuff. The shirt of the month is doing quite well. It's free man. But, normal price. So, yeah, I'm happy about that. The store's doing great. You guys jump on those Lands tickets before they go off sale. I have like a few more days to raise money to pay the gargantuan fee to rent this damn hangar. I didn't realize how much it was going to be. It was a lot of money. It was really difficult to break even.
So it might be at a hotel? Right? Is it going to be at a hotel maybe?
I don't know. All the hotels are already booked. We're probably going to have to bite the bullet and do it at the giant airplane hangar. So if you guys are going, go ahead and buy your tickets now. It would be awesome. And it's going to be awesome anyway. I mean, we got a few sponsors that are going to be there. I mean, as far as vendors go, like doing prizes and giveaways, and there'll be some tournaments. It's going to be freaking fun, and it's going to be in a freaking airplane hangar because I say the word freaking a lot. So yeah, that's that. Any more announcements on this stuff before we move on? I don't know. I don't think so. We got a bunch more mouse pads that are going to be. Everyone keeps asking. Everyone, like literally every single individual in the country, has asked me, when are we going to get more desk mats? I didn't realize you guys wanted them so much. We ran out, so I ordered a slew more, and they have been shipped as of like yesterday, and then they got to go and they got to clear customs, and that could take a couple days and maybe a couple dollars, but they're on their way is the bottom line. So yeah, lots of cool new things, and the mice are almost finished. They'll be finished in a couple of days, and then they got to clear customs and stuff. So things are moving forward. Here it is. Here's the mouse if you guys want to have a look at it. Oh, there it is, yeah. This thing is so freaking accurate. There may be a more expensive mouse that feels a little more solid, but there's not going to be a mouse more accurate than that, and you can mark my words and put them on something, and if I'm wrong, I'll eat something. There we go. I've promised to do nothing.
Tech tested, Logan approved.
I approved my own product. Holy crap. Should we do a review on our own product? I want to know if people want us to do like a legit review on our product. We get it in and be completely honest. That would be kind of interesting if we were like, did a full-on review and pretended it was not our product. People are going to accuse bias, but...
Didn't we send one to Dimitri?
We're going to send one to Dimitri wants one. Paul's going to get one. A number of the other tech channels are going to get one as well. So
let's just run theirs on our channel, because why not?
Yeah, why not? I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about the internet. It's going to be its own thing pretty soon. The contract is running out this year. So ICANN is moving to its own. It's going to become its own like sovereign entity, as it were. A lot of people have been concerned about that, and I'm not sure if I'm concerned or not. I'm concerned at who can get their hands on ICANN once it's a sovereign thing. The USA has had their hands on it for a while. It's been sort of a U.S. thing, but I don't know. Wendell, you think there's any danger of ICANN, if it's a completely independent entity, you think there's any danger of meddling from outside countries?
There's always danger when a bunch of people get together in a room and decide how things ought to be conducted. It's
especially
meddling.
When they're all wearing
People don't
expensive suits. Yeah. The more expensive the suits, the more meddling and the more danger. That's what I've
So it
found.
remains to be seen how this will actually turn out. I mean, ICANN, as long as they leave it to the network engineers and let the network engineers do what needs to be done, this probably will not end badly. But if this turns into some kind of a political thing, or countries get involved and it turns into some kind of international pissing contest, then that would be very bad for the internet as well. So I'm cautiously optimistic that the governance without interference from the U.S. government will be better for the internet overall. But I feel like that the founding fathers of the internet that are still alive have some very timely words for us, words of advice for us during this sort of transitionary time of not just the ICANN transition, but also growth and implementation of the internet in daily lives of citizens globally.
All right, let's follow up on something we talked about last week. We talked about Netflix and the SmartFlix application, which I've started using last week and had no time to watch anything, but I loaded up the interface and I was like, oh my God, there's so many interesting titles on here that I don't have any time to watch, but it looks very nice. And it lets you let you choose your own options. What it was is it's just a service that uses a proxy and allows you to access the entire Netflix catalog it gets around all the region locked nonsense, and you can just see everything that Netflix has on a global scale. And you're like, wow, why couldn't I watch this before? Well, now Netflix is saying, we're going to start blocking proxy access. We already have a list of VPNs, and it's a cat and mouse game. And blocking these proxies is going to be a bit more difficult than just saying like, all right, here's a VPN, this is a VPN, let's just blacklist all those. It's going to be a continuous cat and mouse game, and I mean, it's just going to make the people who want access to all the stuff, it's going to make them try even harder. So it really, really is going to become it's going to become Tom and Jerry essentially, without the bulldog. Who's going to be the bulldog? Do we have a bulldog in this scenario? What was his name? Fred or something? What am I off on?
I really don't understand companies' behavior here. I mean, they've got region locking and they may not have rights for this, that, and the other, but it seems like they would try to find a way to satisfy the wants of people that want these things, unless they're just in this to create artificial scarcity or artificially high prices because something's not available and it's only available on disk. But that doesn't seem very forward thinking.
That to me just encourages piracy in those regions, and statistics also have shown that what I've just said is accurate. Now, what I don't understand, and maybe we can use this time to encourage Netflix, why don't you guys start pushing the different content providers over the different the media companies like Time Warner and whoever else you guys work with. I don't know, I even know who all they are, the Miramax, whatever. I don't even know who's on Netflix. I don't watch anything. Why don't you guys start encouraging them to rethink the way that they do their region locking, and maybe also you guys are big enough that you could start lobbying a little bit to start changing some things. We've got digital stuff. We're global. Let's start thinking about the world in a digital, global way instead of thinking about it in old school region locked sort of way. It doesn't make sense anymore. And here's the thing. If you can take this to them and be like, listen, we got a gazillion people in the UK who want your stuff and they can't watch it. We got a gazillion people in Australia who want your stuff. They can't watch it. And we got a gazillion people in America who want to watch all the stuff that's over there and they can't watch that. And the bottom line is, the more people who watch your stuff, the more you get paid. So why not rethink things, allow people to have the content that they want, allow people to enjoy the media, the culture, whatever it is, and then profit. It makes sense. What am I missing? I don't understand. Anyway,
seems
that's
like
about enough of that.
makes sense, but no. Got to do regionalized pricing. It's like, oh, these people only make $3 a day. All right, let's price things appropriately. It's like,
Okay, well, even if there were regional prices, and they do this on Steam and everything as well, like for video games, they're more expensive in Russia, and the operating systems are cheaper. How does that work? Or maybe it's the other way around. I don't even know. But okay, even if that's so, wouldn't a bigger audience be better than a small audience that pays a high sum and a big audience that pays a low sum? Wouldn't it be better to just have a bigger audience in general? And then bigger audiences usually. It's usually a cumulative effect, or what's the snowball effect? After the audience gets this big, well, it's going to spread even faster, especially if it's good stuff. People are going to talk about it, and then more people are going to want to watch it. So the audience that's the word I was looking for. The audience could be exponentially bigger if you just opened it up, open the floodgates, let everybody have what they want, let them talk, let them share. Money in your pocket. What are you waiting for? Call us up. We'll do your consulting for you if you want. And you're going to pay for it. 10% of everything. Let's talk about AMD's 64-bit ARM-based Opteron. That's kind of interesting. SoC integrated 10 gig Ethernet. How about that? So ARM processors for the data center. Does it have any list here of how much slower they're going to be than x86, or are they going to be pretty much up to par as far as doing the tasks needed for a data center? This is more your field, Wendell, so I'll let you jump in here.
I think that AMD may kill two birds with one stone here. So, without going too far off on a tangent, I really think that AMD, in terms of engineering, is historically, has been. I'm not sure about still is, but has been. I mean, it's kind of harsh, but
the word has been is kind of rough, but it's been used a lot with AMD lately.
From an engineering standpoint, I think AMD has been pretty farther ahead than most people's estimations. They've done some really silly things because they're a smaller company and they don't really have the resources of Intel, in my opinion. But things like, pretty much everything since the AMD Athlon X2, all the way up through, modern Opterons and things like the 8350 when it came out. The 8350, when it came out, was actually a very solid CPU. The problem was that a lot of binaries and a lot of applications sort of depended on like checks for an actual Intel CPU. There were scandals that came out where it's like, oh, this benchmark is checking for Intel instead of the actual instruction sets. The 8350 implements the advanced instruction sets and can perform well, but for whatever reason, the benchmark program says, oh, if Intel, do the Intel optimized, otherwise do the most rock-dumb simple thing possible. And it's like, well, of course it doesn't perform well. But if you ran Linux...
When talking to some of the technicians at AMD, and this is completely like off the record, but having beers with random people that I can't name, and they had told me things like, hey, I worked on this technology. This was a server part. It was not meant for desktop. And then the marketing guys got to look at it, and they were like, ooh, we could have the first 8-core part on the desktop. Ooh, and the server guys were like, no. Desktop binaries, not going to like this. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be okay, but this is a server. We're making this for servers, guys. Come on. And they were like, no. And it was quite fast.
That's exactly what I used the 8350 with, was my home server, basically. And that thing was a champ. ECC memory, the performance was ungodly for the price. Great hardware support. Great, the SATA. Okay, well, the onboard SATA controller was basically crap, but I used a PCI Express add-in RAID controller, and that was pretty good. That worked out all right.
Yeah,
PCI Express was fine. Yeah. And using Linux and things that had been designed for that processor, it worked really well. All right, so bring it back to the ARM. So I think AMD really knows what they're doing on a processor level and with integrated hardware. I mean, they've sort of pioneered HBM, and they've pioneered some other stuff. The 64-bit extensions in your Intel CPU were designed by AMD. Mind blown if you didn't know that. Intel's own 64-bit extensions were something called the Itanium, which later is sort of jokingly referred to as the Titanic, because it was an incredibly bad idea, and everybody thought it was a really bad idea, but Intel was like, we're going to just do this, and everybody's going to like it because we're Intel, and it was like, I don't think so. So the Titanium became the Titanic and sank like a rock. The 64-bit extensions in your x86 CPU, even your Intel CPU, those are AMD's extensions. AMD came up with that. If you didn't know that, then now you know.
Yeah,
and
but
so
AMD sucks, bro. You haven't heard?
With the ARM, AMD is sort of looking to forego that, and ARM honestly is not a problem for Linux at all. So web servers or multi-server workloads, things like that, we want to run a bunch of clients. For a web server, honestly, 128 cores, 256 cores. If you have that many clients, that's going to be fine. That parallelizes just fine, especially with localized memory access. And some things that are borrowed from NUMA and some things that are borrowed from AMD's experience on x86, it makes perfect sense why they would integrate two 10 gigabit controllers into this thing, because these CPUs are going to be used as storage controllers. They're going to be used in, enterprise, mission critical things like SAN storage controllers and stuff like that. And they're not going to have to pay the Intel tax. They're not going to have to, do anything x86. They're not going to have to do any cross-licensed intellectual property with Intel.
That's genius,
This is sort of what Intel was trying to do with the Itanium so many years ago, because it was an original Intel technology, and the whole AMD Intel cross-licensing thing is weird and complicated, but it exists and it's a thing. And so with AMD doing this with ARM in the server space, Intel could be obsolete, really fast, but Intel has really gotten their stuff together in terms of like low power utilization, high density, cache memory, things like that. But the problem that Intel has is that right now their performance depends on very large cache memories on all of their processors. And so that's hard to fabricate from a silicon fabrication standpoint. So depending on which way AMD goes with these 64-bit ARM CPUs, if they're able to do a lot more with significantly less cache memories on the silicon, then AMD's production costs for these CPUs will be very low, and their yield rate will be very high. And that means customers like Facebook and Microsoft and Amazon that are primarily doing all of their stuff online and in the cloud, well, not so much Microsoft, but Amazon and Google and Facebook, where open source rules the day in those companies, they're going to be doing a lot of stuff with those companies in terms of rolling out thousands or tens of thousands of servers. If this is up to snuff, it's a really good research project. Its potential is there, but without seeing more data, I don't know.
Yeah, we need to see exactly how fast it is. This is something I would enjoy getting in and playing around with. Probably letting you play around with it, and just seeing how the performance is compared to some of the standard x86 stuff that we're so used to. And it's also going to be quite low power consumption.
Linux on ARM in general right now is very good. I mean, really great example. I don't know if this made it into one of the videos that we did, but we had the original Surface RT, which had a certain ARM processor in it, and then we had some other tablet that had an ARM, and it was running Android, which was the Linux kernel and some other stuff. And we did a benchmark of Chrome on Android with that ARM CPU, and then we did a benchmark of Internet Explorer, and it was JavaScript-based benchmark. The Windows version of that on ARM was twice as slow as the one on Chrome and Linux and Android. The performance was very good on Linux and Chrome and Android, which shows you that Linux is very portable for operating systems, whereas the unholy abomination that was Windows on the ARM platform was maybe not optimized for that platform to the tune of about 50%. So
it's important to note that it was not half as fast; it was twice as slow. Remember that.
It could accurately be described as an abomination.
Twice as slow. Yep.
And it won't die either. It just keeps coming back. Its current incarnation is the Internet of Things edition of Windows, which will run on a Raspberry Pi. It's just the same Windows. It just won't die.
Oh God. Let's talk about some breaking news out of Japan. 13 terabyte SSD. Only going to cost you about $1 a gigabyte. That's not bad, right? $13,000 for this SSD. You could go out and buy some the 2 terabyte SSDs, which will be coming out very soon from Mushkin. And those are going to be about 50 cents a terabyte, I think. Not terabyte, but 50 cents a gigabyte. I forget. They're going to be really cheap. They're going to be like $500 a pop for those. So, Now, the interesting thing about this drive is, in order to hit 13 terabytes and get some, I guess, break some records and get some headlines and have it be talked about on the internet like we're doing right now, there's no provisioning. No over-provisioning at all. That's pretty damn scary. You can run it in a mode where it basically splits the drive in half. I forget what the mode is called. It's somewhere here in the article. And then, it'll be using that as over-provisioning just in case anything goes wrong. But 13 grand for one of these things. The read and writes are great. 520 on the write and 580 on the read. But 13 grand.
I don't know that the read and write is really... I'm really surprised this looks like a normal SATA interface.
It is,
honestly.
yeah, SATA 6, yeah. This on a PCI Express riser card, or a PCI Express card, maybe a half-height PCI Express card. Would be
I would have expected PCI Express or serial attached SCSI or NVMe over
SAS
mini SAS or something like that, because enterprise SSDs, as they exist now, are insanely high speed. Because in an enterprise grade server, you're going to have 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 drives, probably 2.5-inch hard drives, probably 10 or 15,000 RPM. With that many teeny tiny 10 or 15,000 RPM drives, it really doesn't take very many drives to hit 2, 3, 4 gigabytes per second read and write speed. And the name of the game in the enterprise is I/O operations per second most of the time, depending on what you're running on a server. And I/O operations per second, it makes a huge difference in performance of virtual machines, for example. Sometimes this is over a SAN, sometimes it's local storage. Most of the time it's a SAN when you're dealing with capacities like 13 terabytes, because you wouldn't want 13 terabytes of storage in a single device. And so with the NVMe storage and with the higher speed storage, that interfaces directly with the RAID controller in the servers, and then those have to be able to keep up with the disks. Otherwise it doesn't make sense for you to use flash. I mean, the disks combined throughput would exceed that of the flash cache memory that's used to improve I/O operations on the RAID controller, unless you go all solid state, and then the RAID controller has trouble keeping up because everything is saturating that. I mean, in the enterprise, you've had things like port multipliers and stuff like that, where you've got 20 disks connected, but 20 disks are actually connected only through 4 or 8 12 gigabit per second ports. And so it's not really, it sounds more complicated than it really is in the enterprise. And so this is a really strange device to be targeted at the enterprise with only a SATA interface and only 500 megabytes per second. Most enterprises would be much more interested in having, 4 or 8, 1 or 2 or 4 terabyte disks operating in parallel. Not necessarily even in a RAID configuration. They may be a purely cache configuration. So it's really interesting. They also have apparently they have a proprietary controller. I'm not really sure what to make of the proprietary controller. These flash controllers doing stuff really scare me. After the Anvil report, there was the report where they ran Anvil on a bunch of SSDs, and all the SSDs died horribly after petabytes had been written to them, except for the Intel ones, which just sort of went into a read-only mode. I think there were a couple others that went into a read-only mode, but
yeah, which is the best way to do it, because then you don't lose your data. At least it's still there.
Yeah, if these guys would like us to run Anvil on this thing for them, I'd be glad to do that and run it until it dies.
Oh man, that would feel so awesome. Oh man, just sitting around, that would be amazing. Be like, there goes 13 grand. How long does it? Oh, that. That's better than to me. That's more fun than blowing up a car. People have done that before. Let's melt a fixed star 13 terabyte hard drive from Japan.
Isn't that how FPS Russia got famous? He almost killed himself blowing up a car.
I don't know. He's almost killed a few people. Anyway, actually, someone did die. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about your buddy there. All right. Moving right along. Let's talk about some science stuff.
I didn't know
that. The guy. Yeah, one of the guys from FPS Russia. The guy who was in charge of. He did a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and he was also the guy who would go and fetch the guns for FPS Russia and he would fetch the munitions, as it were. And I think he had some shady deals with a couple of munitions companies where they borrowed things they shouldn't have borrowed, and he turned up dead. Like, that's strange.
That sucks.
Yeah. If I was going to piss off somebody, it would not be somebody who had 1,000 guns.
An arms dealer.
An arms dealer. I wouldn't mess with it. I wouldn't piss off an arms dealer. But I think that I'm not sure if anything came out with it. If you guys in the comments know, let me know. But it was just totally off subject and probably something we don't need to talk about.
I do that. Yeah. That's my bad.
Someone in the audience is offended. One person. Listen, I'm sorry, man. We'll hug it out later. But now, life is upon us, and we've got to toughen up. Okay? All right. We talk over. Neil deGrasse Tyson. They asked him what he thinks the biggest change in the next coming 50 years is, and he started talking about, well, mainly CRISPR and just editing of the human genome and being able to mess with it. And he said he hopes that we're going to start using this to cure birth defects, cancer, some of the diseases that have been with us since the dawn of time. And I think we are going to do that. I think that's what's going to happen with this, hopefully.
Tenure on Earth.
This is, yeah, I'll play a little bit of this.
All the cancers, birth defects, this sort of thing. You would hope and expect that would be the first things we give our attention to, and not try to create some eugenic, Hitlerian, superhuman. That would be really messed up.
So there, he just said that he hopes that that's the first thing that we're going to put our emphasis on, not creating a Hitlerian eugenic super race. And then the next article that I happened to read today was from the BBC, or actually from the independent.co.uk, but it's in Britain. So, first genetically modified human embryos could be created in Britain within weeks. Well, I'm not sure exactly what they're going to be. They're doing this for studying, but they're already. I mean, that the cranks are turning right now. They're only going to be allowed to let them live for 14 days. So of course we've got morality involved. That's one of the big things with all this stuff. You're messing with human embryos. There's going to be people outside, blowing up science research facilities. Just wait. It's just going to, especially to the people in parts of America that don't know any better. Like, we're angry that you're messing around with life, so we're going to kill people. Like, what? Okay. But anyway, just watch. The morality thing is going to be a huge debate in all this. But now they've got some general guidelines in the UK. 14 days to play with an embryo to see what would happen. They can't be implanted in any wombs. And if they do, they can't tell anybody about it. And the first people are going to be born in 9 or 10 months, and they won't know that they were genetic modifications because it'll be secret. They're going to be government secrets, and they're going to be superhumans. And then they're going to get a job with GCHQ, and they'll think everything's a consequence. And then one day they'll realize that their parents aren't really their parents, that they were made in a laboratory. And then, I'm telling you guys too much of the plot, aren't I?
I think something happens. One of them is named Khan, Nooney, and Singh, and then something happens, and then they get frozen.
I was drinking my coffee again every time.
Then they get thawed out. Some really good science fiction.
Oh man. Got to find the Genesis. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I want to know what you guys think about this. Yes, we should focus, I agree, on curing the diseases that have been lingering with our species for all of eternity. But should we look into messing with creating a super race, making ourselves smarter, faster, all that kind of nonsense, making ourselves worth $6 million? Should we mess with that? What do you guys think? Can they do it retroactively? Like, can they, I don't know, re-incubate me and give me some special powers? Like maybe lasers, but out of my ear, so I can have 2 lasers going out of my ear. And if I'm mad at everybody, I'll just shoot my lasers out of my ears and spin around like a helicopter, and everyone's dead. That'd be awesome, right? No, that'd probably be bad.
That the reason that we don't have telekinesis is because no one could resist the ability to crush someone's throat from far away or whatever when they cut them off in traffic or got their coffee order wrong at Starbucks or whatever.
So it's an evolutionary. The lack of telekinesis is not an implausibility. It's an evolutionary precaution.
Yes.
Interesting. Why did the aliens get it? Did they not kill each other? How did it work for them? How did they evolve to this point? Maybe aliens don't have egos. That's what it is. I was reading about some aliens. They don't have egos.
The first thing that happens with this is going to be genetic modification to no longer require sleep. Sleep is obsolete. No one needs to sleep anymore. That's what they need to do. And the government has been experimenting with that for 60 plus years, at least here in America, trying to figure out ways to make people not require sleep. And there have been some really interesting cases over the years. The most interesting one was a guy had a head injury of some kind, and something happened, and there was a head injury, and it was a really serious head trauma. But after that, he really didn't need to sleep anymore. There was he would have a period where he would close his eyes and rest, but it was not actual true sleep. And so that guy was studied pretty extensively.
I need to figure out exactly where on the head he was hit, because I've been doing those same studies myself, and I feel awful. The last couple of weeks, you guys can tell. I see you guys in the comments. They're like, "Dude, get some sleep. Look at those black things under your eyes. What happened, man? You must not be sleeping." You guys are really concerned about me, and I appreciate it. Thanks. Hope you guys are taking your vitamins. I'm concerned about you too.
Gotta find somewhere to live.
Yeah, really, I'm gonna see. We're doing this. We're a little bit slacking on Tech Syndicate right now because we're busy looking for a place to live. So sorry about the content being a bit rushed, but hey, it'll be better. I promise. Right? That's what everyone always does. They always promise it's gonna be better.
I've also
Everything
got a
will
lot of
always be
Linux
better.
content in the percolator, and if you've been following on the forums, you already know all about that.
You've got Linux content in the percolator. Jake, he's a friend of the show. He's been doing a lot of work for us behind the scenes here in Seattle. He's actually worked on several Linux videos because he's a Linux system administrator here in Seattle, and he's put together several just basic jumping into Linux videos, like simple things like how to use apt-get versus Pacman, which one's best for you. We're not trying to get elitist or pedantic or anything like that. He's just saying, here's what they do. So he's made those videos. We're going to take a look at them. He's coming over this weekend, so I'm curious to see how those are, and we'll throw those on the Linux channel after we do a little editing to them and introduce you guys to him, and maybe we'll get some help on the Linux channel. I think eventually we're going to transition to a period where we have some new personalities on each of the channels, and that way we can steadily give you guys content in any variety that you like. So that's a general dream. We can have a hopes and dreams video if anybody cares about it.
I think Rooster's got at least 2 or 3 videos too. I don't know where those are. I haven't heard from him in a while.
Yeah, they're somewhere floating around. I haven't had enough time to hire people. That's what it is. It's like, God, I need to hire some people. Don't have time. No time to hire people.
You need to find somewhere to live first.
Got to find somewhere to live first, and then we can hire people.
So somewhere to live that has enough space.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the great outdoors pretty much right now. That's what's going to happen if I don't get out of here soon. I'll do the great outdoors. Hope they have internet.
I was thinking about redoing my office because there's the other office we shot some things in, but I was thinking about redoing it. I wonder if we should get the internet to design it.
That would be interesting.
I mean, I'll spring for it. It's not going to be the Patreon money or anything, but it's like, what do I want to do in there? All I really want is a sit-stand desk, and I'll probably deploy a double-decker monitor setup like I've got here, probably with 2 40-inch monitors. Not sure if I'd have side monitors. I don't know. My current configuration is 2 27-inch monitors stacked with 4 19-inch monitors turned in portrait on the sides. So 2 27-inch monitors.
Matches the pixels.
Yeah, flanking the 27s on the left and right side are portrait monitors on both the upper and lower row. So it's a total of 6 monitors. But I was thinking about consolidating to just 2 4K monitors in a stacked configuration in the Spaceco monitor tree. And
that would be more pixels, right?
Yes, that's
that's funny.
Yes. One 4K monitor is almost 1 million more pixels than 2 27-inch monitors. So having 2 4Ks, I significantly increase my screen real estate. But I really don't like 2 4Ks side by side unless they're turned vertically, which I might do since I would mostly use the office for work and I don't really do too much gaming in there. That might be a possibility to do them sideways. But I also want to do a sit-stand desk. It would probably be a custom sit-stand desk or something from Spaceco. So if anybody from Spaceco is watching, let me know. The IKEA sit-stand desk is probably not going to cut it for me.
We could probably talk to Red Harbinger. Those guys, they have a sit-stand desk that they're working on. Maybe we could talk to them about getting a custom one for us. And also, we have the Lee & Lee sit-stand. Or it's not a sit-stand, it's just a desk here, but I think it can be modified for a sit-stand. That came in right before we went to CES. Like, literally, the people threw it off the truck, and I was like, oh, I've got to get on a plane, so I'll just put this inside. So... yeah. Now we've got all this stuff.
That office is hardwood floors. Right now, some of my camera work is shaky because it's carpet, and so if I step near the camera moves, and it's like.
So you might move over to the
hardwood floors, and it's about 16.5 by 20, with a 3 by 8 hallway. So it's a pretty decent amount of room.
Could be interesting for use.
Built-in
All right,
shelving
guys.
in the back with 40, 50, 60-inch TVs monitoring stuff instead of a million 19-inch displays behind me.
Well, give us some feedback, guys. You know what would be interesting? We should build one of those LED strip walls like we saw in China for that League of Legends tournament. I've seen them at a lot of concerts and stuff too. It's just a strip of LEDs that can take input, and you can display images on the RGB LEDs to make an entire wall of them. That might be interesting.
I actually did order the stuff to do that at Christmas to build a prototype, but I haven't had time to work on it. But I have about 6 meters of individually addressable RGB LEDs and 2 or 3 96 megahertz controllers that I can use to interface those, and that's plenty fast enough to do video. I was looking at doing a custom case. I was going to build my own case lighting and LCD controller for a special build, and I haven't really had time to work on the build, and I haven't really been in a super big hurry. And something like that for room lighting, it would be very easy to adapt that. So I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone and then do a video on, using the Arduino sketchpad and that kind of thing to build your own custom case lighting controller with a custom LCD screen if you want.
Ooh, lots of ideas. Anyway, more from our team and when we move, and whenever that is. I don't know anymore. We went to Portland all week and just got back right before this, so keep looking.
Hey, the podcasts are live though.
Hey, yep, podcast live, and we're doing what we can. But man, I'm telling you, it's gonna be fun after we get moved into our new place because we're getting an office, and we're gonna fill it full of bananas, and we might even fight, but not with the bananas. No one's getting a banana fight ever.
I get a few work projects done, and then I'll have more time to do stuff too.
Yeah. All right, guys, let us know in the comments, just stuff on the website, preferably, because I don't look at YouTube comments, really. I looked at a couple this week just to make sure all the CES stuff was going okay, but, in general, comments on the website. Thanks for all your support. Thanks for all the patrons on Patreon. You guys are really helping to keep us alive, and just continue to give us feedback. And I hope you enjoyed the show. And this ending salutation is far too long. I am sick of this. Goodbye.
Thank you for your support.